All right, welcome back to Close Up. And certainly what is a bizarre election cycle. What is it like to run a national campaign? What's it like to run Hillary's campaign? We're going to find out. Joined by National Campaign Manager for Hillary Clinton, Robbie Mook. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Yes, so when's the book coming out? Right?
I don't know. I don't have any time to think about any of that right now.
Sure. I got to ask you, from where we are now to where we were a year ago, could you even predicted any of this kind of thing? Did you game this out? Was this even a possible scenario what you're looking at?
Well, you know, one of the most important things I think any campaign manager does is planning for different scenarios. So we planned for a tougher primary, but boy, I never could have predicted that Donald Trump would be the Republican nominee. I never imagined the Republican Party would want to go there.
Yeah, and a lot of people figured that internally, that's great news for Hillary Clinton. But what is it like to run a campaign against somebody you don't know what they're going to do the next day? I mean, you can't plan for anything.
You can't. And look, we're running a campaign to be president of the United States, and I think the campaign is an important vehicle to reflect how someone is going to conduct themselves as president. And so every day we focus on how Hillary can get out there, show that steady, experienced leadership that she has, talk very clearly with the American people about what her plans are to get the economy working for everyone, not just those at the top, how she'll keep us safe here at home. So we're staying steady, and we're making sure to clearly articulate how she's going to make people's lives better every single day. Let Donald Trump do what he wants to do.
Yeah, sure, but I mean, obviously you want to articulate all of that as succinctly and as best you can, but how do you also tap into the energy, the anger, however you want to characterize it? The Bernie Sanders folks, they're going to be key in this election.
The Sanders supporters are going to be key, and we're working very hard to reach out to them. I'm up here in New Hampshire talking to supporters, going up to Vermont later today to have a conversation with Bernie supporters there. So we're working very hard at that. But you know, to your point, voters are very angry right now, and they have two very different options in these candidates. Sure. Hillary is going to provide that steady leadership, get this economy working for everyone. Donald Trump, we just saw today with this Brexit vote, I mean, he was at one of his golf courses promoting it for 7 minutes before he even addressed the substantive foreign policy matters. This is not who people want in their next commander-in-chief. So again, I'm perfectly fine for Donald Trump to show this erratic temperament of his as much as he wants, because I don't think that's what people want.
Does it make it easier to run against a candidate like this?
There's nothing easy about running against Donald Trump, and nothing easy about a presidential campaign, but I do think the difference is very, very clear.
Obviously, it has gotten heated between the two of them in recent weeks, you know, combating speeches, going after each other pretty hard. Is there danger in going after Trump too hard and inflaming the energy that he's been able to generate around him while keeping on message to what, you know, the point you just made as far as articulating, you know, the vision for the economy, the foreign policy, all those things?
Well, Hillary actually set some pretty clear ground rules for us when we pivoted to the general election, and one of those is we're going to use his own words. We are just simply going to present to people the ideas that he has presented, the things he said. We're not interested in embellishing them because I think they speak loudly enough. And in her economic speech the other day, she simply laid out his plan, you know, his plan to default on the national debt and what that would do to the markets, his plan to print more money. These are really dangerous ideas, but there's no need to exaggerate, there's no need to embellish. We just want people to understand what he's saying and take him at his word.
Yeah, sometimes it almost seems like you can't make this stuff up. Bernie Sanders, though, said he's going to be voting for Hillary Clinton. How important was it him to say that ahead of the convention, and not necessarily even at the convention, but beforehand, to kind of let people know that there's a unification taking place?
It's very important. What Senator Sanders achieved in his campaign was unexpected and was tremendous. The attention he brought to important issues like campaign finance reform, like college that people can afford, affordable health care. We want to lift those issues up and continue to talk about them. The conversation he started must continue in this general election, and his supporters are so important to winning here in New Hampshire and across the country. So we're going to continue to reach out to them, to bring them in. We really need them in this campaign, and his support and his commitment to being part of this campaign is essential.
Was it, I don't know what kind of dialogue you've had with Senator Sanders, but do you feel like it will be a seamless case for him to make, having gone, you know, it's a pretty bruising primary, especially towards the end, now on the side of the Democratic Party and the presumptive nominee?
Well, I think Senator Sanders is more committed than anyone to making sure that Donald Trump becomes our next president. So I don't think that piece of it is hard. Doesn't become our next president.
I didn't want that to wind up in a commercial.
I don't think that part is hard for him at all. It's always I've been on the other side of these primaries before, and it's hard to bring everyone together. So we're all going to have to work at that. That's a two-way street. We're committed to that. He's committed to that. But I know at the end of the day he's going to come through and fight as hard as anyone.
Elizabeth Warren, she's out there with Hillary Clinton, obviously raising a lot of speculation on a running mate. Can you give us odds?
I won't go there. I won't go there.
Is she on a short list? Is that fair to say?
Hillary, she's been talked about. A lot of people have been talked about. Hillary is working very methodically through this choice. It's a really important choice. She wants to make sure that she picks someone who is ready to be president on day one should the worst happen, but also someone who can be a partner, particularly on getting this economy working for everybody. Someone who can really get out there and advocate, work with the Congress, get good legislation passed, make sure people get their wages growing, get costs under control for healthcare, childcare, things like that. So she's looking at a variety of dimensions, and she'll pick someone great. We have a lot of great options.
We only have about 30 seconds. What do you expect out of the convention? Because that's what everybody's kind of looking forward to now.
Look, they're right up against each other, you know, and I think you're just going to see a tremendous contrast between Donald Trump. I'm sure he'll put on a great show. It'll be all about him. It'll be all, a lot of talk. I think Hillary's going to get up there and talk about how she's going to make a real difference in people's lives.
Yeah, it could be interesting on both sides of things, but obviously he's going to have a lot of eyeballs in a cycle that is unlike anything we could have expected. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much. Take care.
That's going to